After years of ups and downs, controversies, and misses, is it time for Star Wars to give up, or is this a sign for a bright future? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. It seems like Star Wars as a whole has become somewhat of a joke, and it seems as well like Taika Waititi is totally on that same note. Whether you love or hate the dude, I think you can respect the level of work that he's put in through the years on various projects. I'm personally a fan of what he's done. While I would not necessarily categorize Thor: Love and Thunder in that statement, I do think he has done overall a great job with all of the movies that he's done, and the TV shows, honestly. His style is categorized as satirical and jokey, almost to a fault at points, but I think that he really dives deep into the emotional side of things as well. When you look at how he portrayed Thor in Thor Ragnarok, he did lean into the comedy aspect of the character, but it really gets into the ideas around Thor as a character and his advancement as well as his maturing into how he approaches the world. And even in Star Wars, we have an example of this as him as IG-11 and directing his death in that show to move the story forward. He is not someone who intentionally tries to leverage too much of himself, and I think he strikes a good balance most of the time. But let's get into the statement. So recently he said this, that his Star Wars movie is going to piss some people off. And I think he's totally aware of the whole situation with Star Wars, as no matter what gets put out, you could put the original trilogy out today and change nothing about it, do absolutely nothing, and then there would be backlash from one part of the fandom or another part of the fandom. It doesn't matter. Star Wars breaches and crosses so many generations and so many people and so many backgrounds and communities that there is no way to make a single Star Wars thing that is beloved by everyone. And Taika Waititi definitely knows that, and it's no secret to the filmmaking world that Star Wars is a very different community when you go and create a project in Star Wars. There are so many things in Star Wars that one could focus on that it's almost a hopeless cause to find something that everyone's going to be interested in. When you look at Ahsoka, you see Thrawn and Ahsoka and this new galaxy and pulling heavily from Legends content. But those new fans that join the fray in the Star Wars community aren't necessarily all educated on the variety and vastness of Legends. And if you go to the Legends lover, they are going to want something even deeper, but not going to get it from Ahsoka because it's setting things up and not doing a great job with really explaining or going deep or too deep. So there's a balance there that I think they need to strike. And when we look at Taika Waititi as a director, I think he does a really good job of condensing down these smaller moments and making them interesting and making them something worth looking at that I think would be fascinating toward Star Wars. And he's not someone that I think is going to put big explosions in these big galaxy-changing moments that I think a lot of fans are going to be looking for. But I think he's going to look at some of the smaller moments. What are some of the wilder, wackier genre films that you can do in the Star Wars universe? I think we're always looking at what would this look like in the Star Wars universe? What would a romance look like in Star Wars? Like a rom-com movie look like in Star Wars? What would a horror movie look like in Star Wars? There's all of these different genres that I think could be looped into the Star Wars brand. And I think that's what we're going to be looking at more so for Taika Waititi's film than anything else. I don't think we're going to get that pure Star Wars experience no matter what, but I do think it's going to be more Star Wars than you might expect. And that makes me excited. Going back to the main question that I posed in the beginning of this video of, has Star Wars gone too far? Is it time for them to give up and do something different? Is it time for them to change things that they've been doing for 40 plus years now? And I think this is a multifaceted question. This is something that so many people are wondering. And I'm not saying like, have they gone too far? Is it time for them to give up in a perspective of like, is it time for them to cancel Star Wars movies? Because we know that's never going to happen. I mean, is it time for them to give up telling the same Star Wars stories over and over again? If you look at the sequel trilogy, a lot of it was a rehashing and remixing of that original trilogy with the notes of like the prequels in there sprinkled around in terms of the visual storytelling. And I think this is a good question to ask because it opens up so many ideas and opportunities. Do we want to have a consistent style across everything? If they only make what Ahsoka is, we would never get Andor. If they only make things like Obi-Wan, we would never get things like Ahsoka. If they only made things like the sequel trilogy, we would never get something like the prequel or original trilogy again. And I think that is such a shame, and it makes me wonder, like, what do they want to look for in the future? Is it more about trying these different moments across the galaxy? Is the Mandoverse the core part of Star Wars that they want to expand and develop, as well as like the Rey movie? Is this what they want for Star Wars to be? And then on top of that, do they want this spreading of different ideas? Do they want the core of like the Mandoverse and then the Rey movie, and then they fill in the gaps with these like wild things like a Taika Waititi movie, or like Andor, or something like these spin-off shows around these characters that have had various successes? What do they want to do going forward, and how would that really change things? Is it time for them to give up this idea of having a consistent brand and feel around Star Wars and then just go crazy? Or are they looking to develop things on that note? Do they want more ideas that are consistent across everything? And I think that's an interesting question to pose in this new world of Star Wars. So when you look at something like Taika Waititi's Star Wars project, if it ever gets done, he says he's got 6 projects that he needs to finish writing before that movie even gets done. Whether or not that's accurate or he's just playing around, I think is a completely different topic. But if it ever gets created, I think it's going to change what Star Wars can do, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. I'm just excited to see what something like that could look like in Star Wars, depending on what direction he takes. I don't think it's going to be something huge. I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be something smaller, more character driven, more comedy driven, of course, maybe a little bit more satirical. Definitely that like Kiwi humor for sure is going to be in there. I think Taika Waititi is probably going to star a character in there, more than likely, considering his track record and his other projects. But again, getting into the topic of things, do we want Star Wars to only be one thing, or do we want the variety of things like we have been getting? I personally would love to see the variety of things continue. I just hope that the variety of things also brings with it quality with each thing, because I think we've had various levels of quality assurance on a variety of Star Wars projects. From the movies, I think those were poorly planned out, and as we've seen more stories, not even planned out. The TV shows, I feel like they didn't give enough time to a few of them. Obi-Wan in particular, I think that was a crap show of a show in terms of behind the scenes and actually getting it done. Andor was very consistent, and I love that story, and it really elevated Star Wars for me, but it wasn't for everyone. Ahsoka, I feel, is like striking that middle ground of what Star Wars can be today, but again, it's not for everybody. So what does it look like for Star Wars to move forward, and how is that going to affect Star Wars fans if you are only fans of one of those things? It's something that I think about. But let me know your thoughts on this specific topic in the comments below. And are you excited for Taika Waititi's movie? I've seen various levels of, yes, I'm so hyped for this, and dang it, I hate that dude. Let me know in the comments below, and as always, check out our podcast. May the Force be with you.